Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, and to everyone who listens with an open heart. Today we will begin a 4-part journey guided by a divine call of wisdom and hope. We will talk about a profound topic, the 11 reasons that can lead to poverty and domestic problems, while contemplating the presence of the Islamic miracle in the life of each one of us. In this first chapter, our aim is to bring a sacred, inspiring vision, extolling the light of Islam as a source of healing, transformation, and balance. Remember that each society has its own particularities, and there is no absolute truth that fits everywhere. Nevertheless, there are universal principles in the Quran and in the teachings of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that illuminate our path towards social justice and family peace. 1. Spiritual disconnection and lack of tawakkul, trust in God. When our hearts turn away from the remembrance of Allah, exalted be He, we can feel a deep emptiness. This disconnection makes material difficulties heavier. Without the anchor of zikr, the constant remembrance of Allah's name, we run the risk of sinking into fears and doubts. Poverty is often not just a lack of external resources, but also a lack of internal hope. Those who remember Allah in their afflictions find the strength to persevere, seeing solutions that previously seemed inaccessible. And remember me, I will remember you. Quran 2, 152, 2. Lack of family unity and ignorance of the value of the family in Islam. The family is a sanctuary. When we allow discord, pride or a lack of dialogue to penetrate our homes, we open the door to tension and even misery. Islam teaches to respect father and mother, to protect sons and daughters, to be kind to one's spouse. All of this is part of serving God. Where there is family harmony, there is spiritual and material sustenance. If each member supports the other with patience and compassion, external poverty finds a shield. The home becomes a haven of comfort and hope, where solutions grow almost miraculously. 3. Neglect of zakat and sadaqah. The Quran calls us to purify our wealth through zakat and acts of voluntary charity, sadaqah. When we ignore this principle, we stop receiving the blessings that Allah pours out on those who share what they have. It's like stopping the flow of a river that could irrigate parched fields. Societies that strengthen these practices tend to flourish as charity spreads, nourishing those in need and reviving faith and hearts. Thus, poverty decreases and domestic problems find compassionate resolutions. 4. Loss of barakah, blessing. In wealth there is a profound wisdom in the concept of barakah. It is not just a quantity of possessions, but the quality that brings contentment and longevity to what we own. Many wonder why, despite earning high amounts, they remain in debt or dissatisfied. The answer may lie in the absence of barakah, which is lost when wealth is acquired or used in ways contrary to divine teachings. When we seek lawful, halal sustenance and use our resources responsibly, God can multiply what little we have in surprising ways, creating a true Islamic miracle in our daily lives. 5. Lack of education and knowledge. Ilm. Islam places great value on the pursuit of knowledge. From the very beginning, Muslims were encouraged to study the sciences, the arts, and, above all, divine wisdom. When a community does not invest in the education of children and young people, the cycle of poverty is perpetuated. In this gap, domestic problems arise, as ignorance feeds hopelessness and a lack of opportunities. However, when the light of knowledge illuminates a home, that home rises, and the whole neighborhood or village can be transformed. 6. Misunderstandings about the role of women and men. Islam came to dignify both men and women, each with their own sacred value. However, in some societies, cultural traditions end up distorting this balance and generating family conflicts. Restricting women's right to education or participation in social life is not part of Quranic principles. When this injustice is corrected and both men and women are allowed to contribute their skills, a family and community force is born that firmly fights poverty. 7. Emotional lack of control and patience. Patience is the virtue of believers. Without sabr, it is easy to get into disputes within the home and let anger and pride destroy important bonds. A home that is emotionally out of control tends to fall out of balance, affecting everyone's ability to make ends meet. With patience, however, obstacles can be overcome calmly, attracting Allah's grace. In this way, domestic conflicts diminish and harmony returns, opening the door to divine provisions. 8. Lack of planning and good management. Even with robust faith, we need to honor the teachings of organization and prudence. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught us to be moderate, avoiding waste and unnecessary debt. A household that follows a plan, saves for emergencies and invests in blessed projects is unlikely to sink into poverty. By aligning faith and planning, Muslims see the fruits of their efforts prosper, radiating satisfaction and balance to all. 9. Negative influences and lack of good friends. We believe that the influence of negative company can lead people away from Islamic virtues, culminating in bad habits that undermine the stability of the home. If someone becomes involved in illicit practices, gambling or addictions, the whole family is affected. On the other hand, surrounding yourself with good company, people who remember Allah, who cultivate righteousness, inspires you to overcome challenges. When there's righteousness and faith in the community, it is possible to ward off poverty by helping each other with generosity and brotherly love. 10. Giving in to discouragement and lack of hope. A hopeless heart sees no way out because it is covered with a veil of pessimism. Islam teaches us to nurture hope, because Allah is the sovereign of all things, and nothing is impossible for Him. Even in the midst of the greatest misery, faith can create a way out. Those who believe in divine power and act to improve their condition often find results that, to the human eye, seem miraculous. In this way, Islam does not let us sink into darkness. 11. Lack of dialogue with the community and contempt for the Ummah. Ultimately, we are part of a single Ummah, a great family of faith that encompasses the world. To ignore this reality is to miss out on a treasure trove of solidarity that could solve many problems. Mosques, community centers and mutual aid groups are extensions of our own homes. When we actively participate, poverty and domestic conflicts find support. Wise advice, solidarity, loans, donations, guidance from sages and the warmth of a community that follows the divine call. Divine enlightenment, a miracle within our reach. Dear brothers and sisters, throughout this first chapter, we have seen that poverty and domestic problems can arise from various roots, but we have also learned that the message of Islam offers routes to healing and prosperity. In every difficulty, Allah places signs that His mercy is infinite. All we have to do is open our hearts to the call and put these lessons into practice. Let us remember the words of our beloved Prophet, help one another in kindness and piety. Quran 5:2. When we act with kindness, when we respect the value of family and when we strengthen the bond with the Creator, we experience small and at the same time great daily miracles. Get ready, because there's still a lot to explore. In the next part, we will deepen our understanding of how Islam, in its mystical wisdom, brings practical and spiritual solutions to transcend material and emotional difficulties in our homes. Stay with us on this journey of reflection and faith and discover that, with Allah's help, even the darkest nights can turn into bright dawns. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. My beloved brothers and sisters, welcome to the second part of this series dedicated to understanding the roots of poverty and domestic problems and revealing the beauty of the Islamic miracle that invites us to walk paths of light. In the previous installment, we highlighted 11 possible reasons that keep us from prosperity and family peace. Now, we will delve even deeper into the solutions that Islam, in its immense mystical wisdom, offers to heal social wounds and strengthen our faith. Spiritual healing that transforms lives. First of all, it is essential to understand that healing begins in the sphere of the heart. Islam, as a religion of harmony, teaches that God does not change the condition of a people until each individual changes what is inside them. This means cleansing our hearts of resentment, arrogance and hopelessness, seeking righteousness through prayer, salah, recitation of the Quran and constancy in supplication, dua. When the heart vibrates in tune with the remembrance of Allah, even material issues can be resolved in surprising ways. Spirituality is not an adornment, but the core that allows practical solutions, such as education, employment, and good financial management, to flourish with strength and serenity. Miracles in everyday life. Between the visible and the invisible, we often imagine miracles to be grandiose and spectacular phenomena. However, the true Islamic miracle can manifest itself in details. In winning an honest job when all doors seemed closed, and healing broken family relationships. In the sublime patience that sustains a father or mother in the midst of life's trials. Islam teaches us that every small victory in the fight against poverty or in overcoming domestic conflicts can be a sign of divine grace, proof that the Most High is with us. Every dawn that rises after a turbulent night reminds us that, behind the clouds, there is always light. Family, the cornerstone of mercy. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught that the best among you is the one who is best for his family. So when we talk about domestic problems, we are talking about the sacred nucleus where the character of a society is built. Investing in family harmony is, in essence, investing in economic stability, because solid homes form responsible, altruistic individuals inspired by the values of the Quran. Practical tip: promote small moments of remembrance of Allah at home, short readings from the Quran as a family, joint prayers, frank conversations about how everyone can improve. In this atmosphere of care, divine guidance shines through and undoes knots that seemed impossible to untie. Education as a key to elevation. Let's remember the importance of knowledge. From learning the names of letters to the deeper teachings of faith, everything strengthens the intellect and spirit, preparing us to face the turbulence of this life. In regions where education is neglected, poverty gains fertile ground. That's why mosques, Islamic centers and volunteer projects are ways of bringing this gift to the poorest communities. If you have the chance to study, pass on what you've learned. If you know how to read the Quran, teach those who don't. If you have mastered a profession, mentor someone who is just starting out. This cycle of intellectual generosity helps raise entire families, because knowledge shared is light spread. The power of charity. Zakat and Sadaqah are not mere ritual obligations. They are a breath of divine love that invades the heart and overflows in the form of helping others. Imagine a community in which the wealthiest come together to support the neediest. Domestic problems linked to a lack of resources are alleviated, and faith is renewed when we see that the Ummah takes care of its children. Inspiring stories show families who, after receiving help, not only overcame poverty but became active volunteers, helping others to get back on their feet. This is the virtuous circle that Islam proposes. Every blessing we receive must be shared. The more we give, the more we receive from Allah in barakah. Example of overcoming. An inspiring story. I'm going to tell you the story of Fatima, fictitious name, a sister who faced great difficulties in supporting her children after becoming a widow. Without family support, she was close to giving up. But she sought refuge in the local mosque, where she was welcomed by the sisters who frequented the space. They joined forces to help her set up a small confectionery business. Over time, orders grew and Fatima was able to raise her children in a decent home without going hungry. She attributes all this to the mercy of Allah, who acted through people with compassionate hearts. Today, she makes a point of training other women in the art of confectionery, multiplying the opportunities for families going through a similar situation. Is this an Islamic miracle or not? Patience and gratitude in adversity. Patience and shukr, gratitude, are two pillars that sustain our hearts in the face of suffering. Poverty and domestic conflicts can shake us, but when we cling to these values, we find serenity and learn to extract precious lessons from every tribulation. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, compared the believer to a firm tree which sways in the wind but does not break easily. If you are going through difficult times, don't be discouraged. Raise your hands in supplication, shed your tears before the Most High, and remember that after the storm always comes the calm. Gratitude for every blessing, no matter how small, opens the door to abundance and reconciliation in homes. Honesty and justice as foundations in building a prosperous society. Honesty and justice must be unshakable. By fighting corruption, exploitation, and dishonesty, we create an environment where lawful livelihoods flourish. When leaders, whether in government or in the community, mirror the prophetic model of conduct, public policies and social relations take a path of righteousness. At home, we must also practice this sincerity, treating our family members with transparency and fairness. When the home is fair, it reflects the divine blessings that cut the chains of poverty and resolve many conflicts born of mistrust. The miracle in us, inner transformation. Another fundamental point is to realize that the solution to poverty and domestic problems must come from within. There's no point in changing laws and social structures if we don't cultivate humility, empathy and reverent fear of Allah in our hearts. The greatest miracle happens when we are spiritually reborn, leaving behind selfishness and resentment. Every salat, every recitation of the Quran, every dua is an opportunity to purify our inner selves. Thus, when Allah's grace comes, we will find our hearts open to receive it and share it with those around us. Preparing the heart for the next reflections. Dear brothers and sisters, we have reached the end of this second part. Here, we have tried to show how Islam illuminates every step in overcoming difficulties, whether through prayer, education, charity or improving family ties. When we unite around these principles, barriers break down and we can live in the fullness of divine mercy. In the next episode, we'll bring you practical examples of communities that have been able to apply these lessons, finding surprising ways out of contexts of extreme poverty. We'll also see how each of us can be an active part of this miracle, regardless of location or financial limitations. Stay tuned for the continuation of this journey. And remember, no matter how heavy the trials, every step we take with faith and action can become the seed of a true miracle. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you all. Welcome to the third part of this meeting dedicated to the 11 reasons for poverty and domestic problems, and to the transformative power of the Islamic miracle. We will now continue with stories and living examples of how faith, combined with action, has the power to reverse seemingly hopeless scenarios. Each testimony we present reinforces that Islam is not just a theory, but a practice that flourishes where there are hearts willing to surrender to divine will. Example 1. The community united by zakat. There is a village in a distant country where most families lived on very meager resources. However, there were a few prosperous local merchants. Under the guidance of a wise imam, these merchants decided to organize themselves to fulfill zakat in a systematic way, identifying the most vulnerable families in the area. With fair and compassionate distribution, many households were able to buy seeds to plant, acquire work tools and put food on the table. Poverty, once seen as an impossible burden, began to recede. People began to believe in collective generosity. In this way, hearts were strengthened and the community became more united, reflecting the barakah that emanates from obedience to Allah. Example 2. Women and the Light of Knowledge. In another corner of the world, a group of Muslim women decided to set up a small informal school in the backyard of one of their houses. There, they taught not only the Quran but also basic literacy and sewing classes. Many of the students were single mothers, widows or wives of unemployed husbands. Before long, the skills they learned turned into income, alleviating poverty in many households. More than that, the women rediscovered their value and realized that Islam supports them in their quest to improve their families and themselves. The flame of knowledge has broken the chains of misery, showing that God, in His infinite wisdom, has given women an essential role in the renewal of society. Example 3. The power of dua in the family. There was a couple who faced constant conflicts, disagreements over finances, lack of patience, and communication problems. To avoid a breakup, they decided to seek advice from an Islamic scholar who recommended a simple method. Set aside a few minutes a day to make dua together, asking Allah for harmony between them. What seemed like a minimal gesture became a turning point. In that moment of supplication, hearts softened, resentments dissolved and conversation flowed more respectfully. Within a few months, the couple found balance in their home, and financial difficulties began to resolve themselves, with new work ideas emerging and the support of family members. For them, this was a clear sign of an Islamic miracle. The connection with the glorious past. We mustn't forget that Islam has been a beacon of knowledge and prosperity in different eras, such as the heyday of civilizations in Baghdad, Cordoba, and Damascus. Muslims have led the world in scientific, philosophical and artistic advances, demonstrating that faith does not cancel out reason, but expands it. Why does this matter for our discussion? Because it shows that the potential to overcome is engraved in our collective history. Just as our ancestors rescued people from ignorance and hardship, today we can also bring together effort, wisdom and faith to improve the conditions of Muslim families wherever they are. Practical solutions inspired by Islam. Microcredit and ethical business. Community banks and cooperatives that follow Islamic principles, avoiding abusive interest rates, provide opportunities for small entrepreneurs. Volunteering and mutira solidarity. In times of crisis, organizing joint efforts to rebuild houses, distribute food and health campaigns can save entire families. Distance education platforms. For remote regions, bringing knowledge via the internet, always based on Islamic values, helps to break down the distance barrier. Family guidance in mosques. Create counseling groups for couples, young people and the elderly in order to prevent domestic conflicts before they escalate. Reflections on simple living. Adopting a minimalist lifestyle, avoiding excessive consumerism, is part of the sunnah and can protect against debt and anxiety. The mystical dimension of Islamic living. It is important to remember that Islam is not restricted to the material realm. Islamic mysticism, Sufism for example, emphasizes divine love, constant remembrance, dhikr, and detachment from worldly excesses. Even for those who don't specifically follow a Sufi path, the spiritual dimension of Islam is extremely rich. Practicing introspection, reflecting on the names of Allah and seeking closeness to Him through sincere actions creates an atmosphere of serenity that strengthens our soul against the storms of the world. Often, this state of inner peace is reflected in family relationships and the search for blessed sustenance. The key is balance. When we talk about poverty, we're not just talking about a lack of money. We are also talking about a lack of opportunities, hope, and peace. The message of the Quran and Sunnah points to the balance between commitment to the present life and devotion to Allah. Taking care of the spirit without forgetting matter, and taking care of matter without forgetting the spirit. If there are domestic conflicts, we need to listen to each other with empathy, but also seek divine guidance. If there is financial need, plan and work, but also invoke Allah's help. This is the true meaning of tawakkul, doing the best we can and putting our trust in the one who can do everything. Remembering the power of the Ummah, we are part of an immense brotherhood that transcends borders. When a Muslim nation suffers, it is our duty to reach out, whether with prayers, donations or international aid initiatives. The union of hearts moved by faith can generate extraordinary results, from building schools and hospitals, to welcoming refugees. Every small act of solidarity counts, because the moisture of a drop adds up to the waters of an ocean. In this way, we combat poverty and domestic problems globally, evoking the spirit of brotherhood that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, emphasized so much. Ending this third stage, today's day reminded us that Islam not only diagnoses the roots of poverty and family conflicts but also presents bright paths to regeneration. We have learned from concrete examples that living faith, combined with responsible action, brings miracles where there were only shadows. In the next and final chapter, we will summarize all these teachings, offering an inspiring vision of how each one of us can become an agent of change. After all, each believer is a guardian of the earth, a representative of Allah in the world. Khalifa. May we end this series with the certainty that challenges exist, but they are smaller than the greatness of the divine love that dwells within us. Stay with us for the conclusion of this blessed meeting, where we will reveal how the Islamic miracle can manifest itself in the daily lives of every believer, transforming homes, hearts, and destinies. May Allah's peace and mercy be with you always. Praise be to Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. We have reached the last chapter of this spiritual and reflective journey, where we share the 11 reasons that generate poverty and domestic conflict, while discovering the power of the Islamic miracle. This is our opportunity to crown all that has been said by casting an inspiring gaze on the future of our families, our communities, and the entire Muslim world. Recapping the 11 reasons with a transformative spiritual disconnection, may we return to the center of our faith, praying sincerely and trusting in God. Lack of family unity. May every home become a haven of love, harmony, and constant dialogue. Neglect of zakat and sadaqah. May the flow of charity be continuous, allowing the blessing to spread. Lack of barakah in wealth. May we seek lawful gain and be grateful, ensuring divine multiplication. Lack of knowledge. May education be cultivated in all ages, enlightening minds and hearts. Distorted view of the role of women and men. May we practice equity and respect, following the examples of the Prophet. Emotional lack of control. May we learn patience, sabr, for Allah loves the persevering. Lack of planning. May we be organized, avoiding waste and seeking moderation. Negative companions. May we choose friendships that elevate us spiritually and morally. Discouragement and lack of hope. May we turn our gaze to Allah's infinite mercy, even in the face of adversity. Contempt for the Ummah. May we see every Muslim as a brother in faith, supporting each other in times of need. The role of each of us. Be beacons of guidance, dear brothers and sisters. Islam has taught us that every believer is a shepherd, responsible for those under their care. This means that we all have an active role to play in building a just and prosperous society. If we have financial resources, we can be generous. If we have knowledge, we can teach. If we have the energy, we can dedicate ourselves to volunteering. If everyone does their part, the body of the Ummah grows stronger. Imagine millions of people acting in harmony, respecting and helping each other, while raising supplications to Allah for misery and discord to be removed. That is the true spirit of Islam. The future we can draw dreaming of tomorrow is not futility, but an act of faith. We can envision cities where mosques are centers of education and welcome, where differences are resolved with dialogue and respect, and where families find, in daily prayers, the fuel to weather the storms. In places previously dominated by poverty, nurseries, schools and vocational training centers are springing up, run by Muslims who are aware of their mission. Technology and the internet become tools for expanding Islamic knowledge, reaching people in remote areas. New generations flourish, carrying in their hearts the pride of being part of a sacred tradition that values the dignity of every being. The Islamic miracle that inspires us today. We often expect a miracle to be something spectacular, almost cinematic. But, as we have seen, Islam teaches us that every creative solution, every gesture of mercy, every small step taken with sincerity can become a miracle that changes a destiny. Allah acts in subtle and sometimes even silent ways, but always with wisdom. The real miracle can be in the family reunion that dispels a misunderstanding, in the smile of a child who learns to read, in the courage of a young person who refuses a bribe, or in the generosity of a businessman who invests in the community. Islam is alive in every action that reflects divine principles, and everyday miracles spring from this life. Challenges and hopes. Of course, the path is not simple. There are political, economic and cultural challenges that can't be solved overnight. But faith urges us not to give up. Every effort, no matter how small, counts before Allah. Every prayer, every donation, every smile offered to a brother in distress, everything is recorded in the book of life. So let's be grateful for the small victories and persevere through adversity. Not every challenge will be overcome immediately, but we can be sure that with patience, hard work and trust in God, we will reap fruits that transcend time and space. Call to action. As we come to the end of this series, we invite you to reflect. What will be your next step to help reduce poverty and alleviate domestic problems in your community? It could be a charitable initiative, a frank conversation with your family, an education project, or even a constant prayer for those who suffer. Let's always remember that, before Allah, what counts is not the size of the act, but the sincerity that accompanies it. And with the union of sincere hearts, a stream of light is created that can illuminate even the darkest corners. Here we end our 4-part journey, grateful for every inspiring word of the Quran and the examples of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. We hope that this content planted in your heart will grow like a leafy tree, offering shade and fruit to everyone around you. May Allah, in His infinite goodness, shower upon us the barakah that dispels misery, the wisdom that pacifies homes, and the courage to act according to the principles of Islam. And may each of us experience the Islamic miracle in our own lives, recognizing the divine presence in every heartbeat. So far, if you have been touched by this message, please share this content with your brothers and sisters so that more people can find inspiration in the sublime message of Islam. Be at peace, enlightened by the remembrance of Allah. As-salamu